So the first anti-aircraft missile we'll look at is the FIM-92 Stinger. This is fire and forget, so you lock on, get the crosshairs, fire, and then it will go off and hit the target on its own. On this drone it takes 2 to knock it out of the sky. We're usually looking at 4 to knock down an aerial target. So it does suffer from the fact that if a helicopter goes behind a building, the missile won't avoid buildings, it will run into them. And if they flare, then that missile will just veer off course and you've lost it. So it's always better with a Stinger to try and fire just after they've flared, and you usually get a couple of good shots in before they can flare again. So the Stinger is nice and quick. You can dive back into cover, you can move around. So the Stinger is the quick and easy option, but because of its vulnerability to flares and because it self-guides, it's not always the most reliable method to hit the target. So the second anti-aircraft missile is the SA-18 IGLA. So this is the Russian version. And this isn't fire and forget. Once you've fired it, you have to keep the lock on until the missile hits. Now, I always assumed that that was the case, that you couldn't break the lock, but actually you can. The lock doesn't always have to be on. Now, if you fire the missile with it aimed, you'll notice that the first missile hits after the second one. So it works a bit like the SRAW. As long as you're aimed when you fire the first one, it will then reacquire the target once you fire the second one and keep that locked on. So the IGLA is probably better for open maps so that you can keep those locks, but it does have a wider field of view, should we say, for keeping the lock on. It's not as tight as the Stingers is. You don't have to be quite so exact. Problem with the IGLA is, of course, is you have to stay out. So you can't fire and duck back into cover. You have to stay vulnerable to what you're shooting at. But it is effective, and if it does get flared, you can reacquire the target after the flare and the missile will come back and hit it. Now, because you have to keep the lock on, if something goes out of range like that, that missile is gone. So the third AA missile, and the one everybody forgets, is the HVM-II, which is better known as the Starstreak, and it's a British missile. Now this one, like the IGLA, you have to keep the lock on, but it fires 3 missiles at once. And also like the IGLA, it can lose its lock and reacquire it. So you can fire them off, lose the lock, get the lock back, and they will come back and hit. It hits a lot harder than the Stinger and the IGLA, but is only available as a pickup in the levels. So this is the one from the top of the tower in Shanghai, and as you can see, I lose the lock, get it back, and the missiles come back and drop that chopper. So that's it. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching.